for the public hearing at 7:05 PM. Motion by Len,
Second.
second by Anne Marie. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Chair votes aye. Motion passes 6-0. Okay, so we're back in public comments for the public hearing. Jim?
James Brennan, 124 Bungay Road, a.k.a. Jamie Brennan. I'm here tonight to speak on this delay of demolition ordinance. As we're just about a year ago, we spoke on this same topic. I went to compare, but I didn't have the last ordinance proposal, but I do have the ordinance committee's discussion to this item, and it doesn't appear that some of these items were met. On item number 4 of the ordinance committee's June 20th, 2016 meeting as follows. 4, discussion of historic landmark preservation ordinance. Discussion took place and the committee had several questions, including who would make up the board that would review this, as well as a list of what houses or could qualify for this status. No action taken. Houses, I would assume the structures too. We're talking about 50. I rise tonight to again voice my opinion on this matter. I strongly oppose this ordinance, as the way it's written is completely discretionary in both its interpretation and how it would be applied. It is clearly a revocation of property owners' rights. There's basically, I go through it page by page or just hit the highlights, you know. The committee, it doesn't define who the committee is made of. You know, it says, 5 members. It says the building official, and then definitions it says inspector. That puts an awful lot of power in a couple people's hands to make a decision on their own opinion, as there are no codes or anything to what constitutes historics. There's no list of buildings in the town of Seymour that would be reflected on this. There's clearly only one reason why a property owner would demolish a building on their property, and that's because it's in the best use of their property to remove it. So any action to prohibit the demolition of personal property is clearly an infringement on the best use of personal property. We don't give, in here it talks about the 180 days starting from the application point. Historic Review Committee, who isn't defined as how many members, so this whole decision on whether a building can or cannot be demolished is based on a minimum, according to this, of 4 people's opinion, solely their opinion, and a maximum of 6 people, as the committee said to constitute 5 people, and your building official inspector. If you've got, this opens the door wide for prejudice, whether in favor of or opposed to people, whether it be cronyism, nepotism, whatever ism we want to talk, or in favor of, or opposition to. Demolition in this thing, in the definition, page 2, demolition, the intentional act of substantially pulling down, destroying, dismantling, defacing, removing, or raising a building or structure, or commencing the work of a total, substantial, or partial destruction with the intent of completing the same. Also, the act or process of delaying or withholding maintenance of a building or structure in such a way that its cause allows significant damage to occur, which may result in public hazard. Well, here we're mandating that a property owner has to put money into a building that they've already determined when they filed an application that they have no use for, or it's in the best interest of their property to take it down. So right here now we're mandating that people spend money on what 4 or 6 people's personal opinion is, whether it stay intact. Again, you go to section 4, no permit for permits required. You know, you need a building official. There has to be, before a property owner would even entertain, you know, the decision to demolish a building, there's costs that go involved with that. You know, what would it cost, whatever the problem is, whether they need to update something or the building doesn't meet their needs, but it's cheaper not to move, so just take the building down and put a different one. So it all comes down to cost and spending money. So there's upfront costs. So people have spent money, and given the time that this was available today and the other commitments I had, I wasn't able to review what the application requirements are for a demolition, but I'm pretty familiar with inland wetland regulation applications, and they all require professional services and the expenditure of money. Now, if you're going to require that, you know, in the application, and then put up to 180 days that they can't do anything done, any contracts you would have entered into, timelines or anything else, you're entering in you without knowing, as there are no specifics as to what property or constitutes being saved or not, the expenditure of these monies to put forward the application. 6 months later, you find out you can't go forward. The money's been spent. Is the town, if it's so important to the town of aesthetic value or whatever, is the town going to reimburse for application costs?
Wait, Jamie, I'm going to stop right there. Where do you see aesthetic value? Because do you have an issue with the definition of significant building on page 3? Because if it doesn't qualify as a significant building, if you look to the bottom of page 5, if the building or structure is not determined to be significant, or if the committee fails to notify the building official of their determination within the allotted time, the building official may proceed with issuance of a demolition permit. So is your issue with the definition that's defined on page 3 of a significant building? Because that's all we're talking about. We're not talking about a house that's 5 years old.
No, you're saying 50. You know, I'm
Okay, but
57.
But Jimmy, have you looked at the definition of significant building? Because that's what this is all tied to.
Yes, it gets into community. I'm not sure if that, but in here it gets into community.
Okay, but Jamie, have you looked at the definition of significant building? Because I think you're confusing things here, and it's on page 3, significant building. Any building or structure within the municipal boundaries which in whole or part is known or presumed to be at least 50 years old, and which has been determined by the Historic Review Committee or other designated authority to be significant to the community based on one or more of the following criteria. The building or structure is listed on the state or national registry of historic places, or is partially or completely within the boundaries of an area so listed, or the building or structures has been determined by the State Historical Preservation Office and or the National Park Service to be eligible for listing on the state or national register of historic places, or the building or structure has been documented associations with one or more historic persons or events, or with the broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the town, the state, or the nation, or the building or structure has been documented historically or architecturally important in the terms of period, style, method of construction, specific use, or association with a recognized builder or architect, either by itself or in the context of a group or building. So that's what we're talking about.
Right. And if we go back to anything that could be listed on the National Registry.
So your issue is with the Historic National Register.
Well, what's the determination of cultural, political, or social history of the town? What does that mean? If it's been around for
well, I think
X
that's something that would be determined by that board.
Social history.
So if a house has been in Seymour, let's say the Catherine Matthews house, should that house be able to just be leveled at any time? Or do you think there's any significant importance to the Catherine Matthews house to the town of Seymour?
I think it's the decision of the property owner.
Okay.
And if the town needs...
That's your opinion. But I just want to make sure you're understanding, because you're...
Right, I'm understanding.
But you're not talking about significant buildings. You're making it sound like there's a house that's 5 years old.
No, we know everything's over 50 old, which I've already said doesn't seem historic to me, 50 years old.
Okay.
I must be ancient, but that 50's historic.
But presumed to be at least 50 years old, and which has been determined based on this qualification.
Right, so it's just the first piece of the two
Yeah.
elements of how you determine it.
Determined by,
But there's
Ooh.
specific criteria that's listed right there. So my question again, I'm going to ask you, is do you have issue with the definition of significant building that's presented? Because I think that's the crux of your argument.
yeah, because that's determined by 4 or 5 people, whether it's significant, whether
Wait,
it's
wait,
a
wait, hold-
landmark,
wait a
or
minute, Jay.
whether it's,
The building or structure is listed on the state or national register of historic places. That's not determined by 4 or 5 people.
or could be listed.
But, no, Jamie, the building or structure is listed. The building or structure has been determined. The building or structure has documented. The building or structure has documented.
Right, it's
So we're not just making this up on a whim.
It's not
So,
mayor.
again, my question is your issue with the significant building verbiage as it's put in this paragraph? That's my question. I understand your point, and I get that, and I appreciate that. But what this comes down to is this significant building. This is the key thing in this ordinance. Because if it doesn't have those things, then, based on my understanding of this, that there's nothing that we can do. So that's why I'm asking. So a house could be
My
60 years
concern
old.
is
My
who-
house is more than
who-
50 years
who-
old, but there's no
Who
significance to it.
determines whether it's of social or cultural or community value?
It has documented association with one or more historic persons or events, or with broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the town, the state, or the nation. So the David Humphreys house, should that be able to be just knocked down by the person who owns it?
I think the key statement or the key word in there is documented.
Yeah.
There does have
Right.
to be documentation, but I see your point, you know.
Again, it goes back to the property owner, the person who's paying taxes, the person who, if they have no use for it, is gonna have to maintain it and put it all up, just because, you know, the town also has in here that you can't let it go. If you have no use for it and you can't knock it down, why maintain it?
Okay, so you're okay with the definition of significant building, though? Other than that, I guess that
I
third
don't-
bullet,
Yeah, that architecture.
broad architectural, cultural,
Yeah,
political, economic, or social history.
Don't know what the legalese of that is or whatever, you know.
That's all
what
I'm
I mean?
asking. I'm just,
Yeah.
Does that part specify that it has to be documented? Or does that part just at the will of the board?
the building or structure has documented associations with one or more historic persons or events, or with broad architectural, cultural, or political, economic, or social history of the town.
And
So-
the documentation applies to that second part after the or,
I would think so, yes.
Rich?
But,
Does that sound right to you, Rich?
so I mean, but if that's your issue, then that's a language thing that we need to clean up.
Yeah, because I definitely, I haven't read this line by line either, but I certainly share some of Jamie's concerns with, you know, a board of not necessarily qualified people, you know, determining what is significant to town history or not, and then, you know.
Well, again,
I would like to see maybe some more clarification, or at least some kind of opinion on
Hmm?
what that or means to that statement.
No, that's not a problem.
I think, you know, just kind of follow up on Stefan's comment, because I see where you're going with that too, and I think, Jamie, to what you're driving at, it seems to me there's 2 points. Number one, the principle of the matter you don't agree with, which is, you know, certainly your opinion. So this is a hard issue that I know towns around, particularly in Connecticut, but around the country are dealing with. You know, when somebody has a piece of private property they paid for, they paid taxes on, and there's some kind of a documentation that states that that's historically significant, what do you do with that? How do you compensate those people? How do you keep the thing from being demolished, you know, when it may be in the best interest of the owner to do that? I get that. That's the principle of the matter. The other issue seems to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have an issue with the potential latitude given to this committee, the commission that's referenced in the ordinance.
Correct, but it also comes down to, if we're saying stuff that's already documented, why do we need to wait 180 days for a board to
Okay.
make a decision?
Well, I don't,
The time frame you have an issue with as well.
I don't know if it says that.
Yeah,
I mean, within 5 days from application, the building official shall forward a copy. I mean, there's several caveats in here too.
if we go back to
Kinda
page
moving along.
1,
On page 5. Are you on,
if you go back to page 1, it's, you know, in the third paragraph. The town shall impose a waiting period of not more than 180 days before granting a permit for the demolition of any building or structure that is designated as preferably preserved.
But if you go to page 5, under procedures, where it specifically outlines the steps, 5 days, 10 days, 15 days,
And then no more than 180
25.
days.
But I mean, it's not that we're deciding nothing's going to happen for 180 days. That's not what the ordinance says.
No, it says no more than 180 days.
I understand that, but the way you're saying it like we're going to make somebody wait up to 180 days, that's not what the procedure says at the bottom of page 5. So do you have issue with the procedures as listed on the bottom of page 5?
I have issues that they should make a determination, and it should be my suggestion that it go to be properties transferred at the time of the ordinance gets put in, because to pull the rug out from under somebody who owns property or something.
Okay, so let's go back to that. So in the first bullet, within 5 days from application, the building official shall forward a copy of the application to the Historic Review Committee. Within 10 days from application, not 10 days when they get it, 10 days of application, the
Yep.
committee shall make a written determination of the significance of the building or structure using the criteria stated in section N4. And that's the part we just talked about.
Yep.
Within 15 days from application, the committee shall provide the building official and the owner applicant with a copy of the written determination listing the reasons that the building or structure is not historical and/or architecturally significant, is or is not, excuse me. And then if the building or structure is not determined to be significant, or if the committee fails to notify the building official of their determination within the allotted time, the building official may proceed with issuance of the demolition permit. Within 25 days from application, the committee shall hold a public hearing, and then within 30 days from application, the committee shall decide by majority vote whether to invoke the demolition delay or shall notify the building official. So do you think 30 days is too long to wait? Do you think that puts undue hardship on a person with a building that qualifies under the significant building verbiage that was listed earlier in this?
To know or to not know, it should be, deemed.
What do you mean to know or not to know?
Well, you go forward with the application, not knowing whether you're going to be determined
Well,
as.
you'll know within 30 days.
Right, or up to 180.
No, Jamie, that's not what it says. Don't say or 180. It's not what the ordinance says. The ordinance is very clear. Within 30 days from application, the committee shall decide by majority vote whether to invoke the demolition delay or shall notify the building official and the owner applicant of their decision in writing. So within 30 days, the homeowner will know.
Okay, then there's a conflict, because if we go back to page 1, it says, under this chapter, the town shall impose a waiting period of not more than 180
Because
days.
it's talking after the
granting
decision
permit.
is made.
That's farther down the road.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so you have no issue then with someone waiting 30 days? I shouldn't say waiting. You have no issue with a person getting an answer within 30 days?
That's the way it is.
Right.
So, getting an answer, and then we're saying it's another 180 till you act, or another, if it's got it in 30, it's another 150 or something.
could
till you
potentially
actually
be.
get the permit.
It could potentially be, yes, if it qualifies under all these things, and that's what the committee decides.
The scenario could.
Seems to me if you've got your decision in 30 days, you should have your permit on 30 days.
If they feel that it's not significant, you would get your permit immediately to knock the building down, or the structure down. But if it's determined that it is a significant building based on the definition, then it could be up to 180 days that they wait.
Because they're giving themselves more time to investigate it thoroughly before the final decision's made. That's all that is. So if it's a clear, quick decision, they'll do it within 30. If not, and they feel it qualifies, or it may qualify, they're gonna go out and investigate it before making a final decision. That's all just it's a sliding scale of time.
Right, I
depending on the scenario.
I understand. I'm saying there's the potential to be 180 days out, and then your contractor moving whatever you set
That
up.
is 100% correct, yes.
Is,
That could happen. Again, let's
knows?
use the Catherine Matthews house.
So potentially.
I would
that's
venture to
a-
guess the
yeah.
Catherine Matthews house would be 180 days in this scenario.
Right. Okay, well, We agree, I think 180 days is too much when you've tied up your money to get the professional work. Let's go to page 6. Public notice of, under the, within 25 days from the application committee, hold a public hearing, blah, blah, blah. Public notice of the time, place, and purpose of the hearing shall be posted in a conspicuous place in the city hall or town hall for not less than 7 days. I don't think that's adequate notice, but just putting it up in town hall. How many people, I mean, I visit here often, but I'm not here even every 7 days.
So what would you suggest?
The same as a public notice, has to be some kind of the same as a public notice of legal notice, circulation, minimum circulation.
Where? Through what means?
Social media,
Doing
Internet?
newspaper, whatever you got now for,
same that we use
Legal.
now
How
for.
about the website, Jamie? What if it was posted for 7 days on the website? Would you feel that was better?
for me
Well,
personally,
not enough people read the paper anymore. That's
Well, let me
why
ask you,
offering the
you
website.
found, Jamie, you found out about this meeting through what means?
voices,
Okay, so if we use the same path that we use for this meeting for that, would that be okay?
yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
cost anything to put it on
Opinion.
social media. I just personally don't use it. I'm saying for me, I know a lot of people do,
No,
I'm
no,
just
that's
saying
what we're
in one
asking.
place in town hall, we should get
Yeah,
something
we're asking for your opinion.
Yeah,
more than that.
Jimmy, again, this is not near its final format,
Right.
so. Okay, what else?
Page 7, number 7.
Mm-hmm.
The building official, again, here gets a lot of authority. He can deem something to be an emergency thing, and the person can get through this whole process or not, I'm just saying,
I don't think that that's what that's saying.
what's it saying?
I think that if the Catherine Matthews house catches on fire and it's structurally inadequate, at that point, the building inspector can say this house is not safe, it needs to come down immediately.
Right. So safety
That's what
issue,
that's
then
saying.
It's gotta go.
Yeah.
Whether it's been deemed a historical.
Which the
landmark or not.
building inspector has that authority now.
It's a public safety issue.
Because there's many times we have to bring the building inspector out at night for a house fire,
All right,
to
not
make sure the structure is safe.
So by this ordinance, the building inspector cannot
It's,
keep a stay of execution on a
Yes.
building, though?
if it's not safe.
So I think you're okay.
Yeah, you should be okay with that one, Jay.
Okay, page 8, issuance of permit. To avoid or mitigate effects, demolition, the owner shall make a good faith effort to accommodate reasonable requests for any interested parties for information about or access to the building or structure. You gotta let people into your house, or access, whatever. That just seems, redundant to me. And then it gets in, I'm not sure on which page. Rules. Where the applicant, if denied, had to pay for all the postings and everything else if the town deems that
Which section you in, Jim?
denies.
Which section? Just so
If
we
you
can
go
follow.
section 10,
Okay?
underneath your numbers there.
Yep.
All costs relating to the publication of legal notice, certified mailings, and the posting of demolition sign, if applicable, shall be collected prior to the issuance of a demolition permit. Are those things not already figured into our permit fees?
I believe that's, again, this is generic language, so that would match what we have for our demolition permits.
Yeah, and then back, page 10.
Page 10? I don't have a page 10.
You don't?
No.
Section 12, administration.
I honestly I don't have a section 12. I'm not saying that section 12 doesn't exist, I'm just saying I don't have it in my copy. So go ahead, just read it. I'll take a note.
The committee may, on its own initiative and with information available to it, develop a list of significant buildings and structures that will be subject to this chapter. The initial adoption of the list and any subsequent additions to the list shall be enacted after public hearings on the subject. Seems to me that we should put, before we enact this ordinance, we should get those properties together in a list, you know? If you're gonna tell people they gotta pay taxes, they've gotta maintain a building and everything else, they ought to at least have the opportunity to dump the property before they get hit with all these monies.
Okay.
They're paying taxes anyway.
Right, but now, if you're at a building, and I'm saying, if you go to knock it down because you have no use for it, or it doesn't fit, you know, and then you can't knock it down, you're still gonna have to pay taxes on it. The thing about maintaining it so it doesn't dilapidate, now you still gotta maintain it so it doesn't dilapidate, you know?
I
Back
get what you're saying.
back last year, you know, I said if you're gonna initiate that can't demolish it, should be removed from the tax rolls, because the property owner no longer has authority over, you know, best use of his property or that building, which could be another reason why somebody would demolish, you know, the fact that what the tax offset to the use they get out of the building, they'd recoup their money by backing down. So it's just putting a lot of financial burden. I don't think we need it. And clearly need to identify properties as they had said in their minutes from last year.
Mhm. Yep.
So I would suggest, you know, just dump it. If the town really, you know, if the opinion of 5 people that it has to be preserved and can't knock down, and the town feels so strongly about it, buy it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jamie.
Right, is there any other public comment on any of the, any other public comment? Okay. Seeing as there's no more public comment, we will close the public meeting at 7:31 PM. Thank you, everyone.